Morning, traders. Welcome to our YouTube stream that we open up to the public every single Wednesday. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're going to be going over a little bit of a pre-market analysis. Going to give you guys a little bit of a breakdown of what's going to be happening here this morning. This is Spartan speaking, by the way. Once I'm done, Beth's going to come on, give you a breakdown of the macro environment, any news events that happened over the course of the evening this morning, as well, going through any of the bigger picture items, commodities, ETFs, big caps, whatever makes sense to be looking at today. Once that's done, I'm going to be going over individual names that are gapping up, gapping down. We'll talk about those names from a technical standpoint, the news that is causing them to gap up, gap down, as well as go through the SPY, the FANG, the VIX, the Qs, and the IWM. After that's done, I'll pass it over to South Beach. He'll be going through the macro environment, what he's been looking at from any analyst calls and individual names as well. And then we'll do a quick little recap of those names that I talked about in regards to the individuals and the FANG, and we'll be ready for the open. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead, pass it over to Beth, and I'll talk to you guys in a little bit. Beth, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my friends. Welcome. Pre-market here at Spartan Trading Wednesday. Welcome to those of you who are watching us via our live YouTube stream, or if it gets taped too. Okay, not a problem. All right. Wow. We actually have a lot of issues to talk about, and we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive in terms of China, small caps, yada, yada, yada. All right. Before that said, Kicks and PMI out of China, 54.9, 53.1. So it was better than expected. And there's a couple things that happened that you have to be aware of as well. In terms of lowering of GDP because of the COVID again in China, things like that. Things were a little bit softer in India. We want to keep an eye on India because it's such a large, service company supply, as well as just to see what's going on in terms of Asia Pacific Rim, right? Market services PMI a little bit softer across the board. And in Germany as well, softer than expected. Retail sales, softer than expected. Right. We do have our ADP number coming out. Don't forget we have non-farm payroll on Friday. Have to talk about that. Claretta speaking. We get our market services PMI, the final for July. Should not be a lot of surprises. Then we have ISM, et cetera, et cetera. The bonds are up today, and we'll talk about that. It's all about the yield curve, baby. If you don't understand it, you gotta learn it really fast. All right, so foreigners. Return to China. A lot. Foreigners bought $19.7 billion, which is $3.1 billion worth over the last 4 trading sessions. Equity via Shanghai and Shenzhen. Wow. You didn't think that was gonna happen, did you? China lowered their GDP because of the Delta outbreak. We don't know what the hell's going on there, but we know that they're lowering their GDP, right? Not a good look. So they're lowering it from 6.4 to 5.1%, right? And they lowered their from 5.3 to 4.4. So irregardless, we're seeing that in on the interest rate side, right? We're seeing that the Chinese continue to lower their interest rates, which is notable and tells us not everything is not well in the land of China. Okay, Gensler's on CNBC right now. Why does anybody have an issue with this? I mean, it's ridiculous, some of the stuff going on here. There has to be some sort of regulation, and I think that's a fantastically bullish thing if we start to regulate it. It's absurd. I mean, the basis, it's crazy. I don't have any problem with that. They continue, well, gee, I missed Mary. She's on next on CNBC. Let's see what she has to say. It's funny because at first we thought it was over with, right? That we were just at the end. Now they keep pushing it. And, the chip makers, let's get it done in terms of, this is a huge opportunity tailwind for them in terms of pricing. If they had built an inventory or start to build an inventory, we'll see. I don't know, right? So here you say, here's another article talking about the slowdown in China. This is fascinating. So if you look in terms of sophisticated products, we're in a trade war, but yet, look, right? You would think this would be going down, not up, but it's going up. The yellow, well, yellow-orangish is China. How does this happen? I thought we're in a trade war or something. Intellectual trade war. Kind of ticks me off. All right, so what are we waiting for? The unions are basically saying we want full FDA approval. FDA said, shit, maybe I should get off my ass and do it with Pfizer and Moderna. Like, what are they waiting for? I mean, it's not as though this has only been out like a couple months. I mean, this has been out a year plus. They requested it a month ago. Let's do it, guys. Get off your ass. So what is Tyson saying? All right, we'll give you a $200 bonus. Is that enough? Well, I don't know. We'll find out. Some places it's not. I'm just saying. It's, and these are choices, right? People are entitled to make their choices. If you don't want to work for a company that requires it, that's your choice. Nobody's going to make you do anything. Okay, so initiations. Okay. Downgrades, a lot of them today. American Waterworks, this is actually kind of interesting right there. And let's look at upgrades, lots of those. So UAA, I'm in this, so GBT got a great upgrade, right? And we're going to talk about retail, we're going to talk about healthcare, and these are the two ETFs that we I'm in all kinds of retail right now. And a lot of that has to do with the stimulus check for the children going back to school. It's a strong seasonality. This is a no-brainer. And Nike, UAA, Gap, you name it. These are swings that I've been in. I've talked about them before. Okay, so of the ones, my top dogs have to be 70+%. LVR, COUR, and NVIDIA. All right, yesterday, communications was the only one that was down. Financials, everybody was up. Moderna, obviously, right? Was doing its thing. Under Armour doing its thing. Ralph Lauren, well, you get the idea. And we're also going to talk about OIH, Schlumberger, and Halliburton as well. And we'll talk about a little bit of a potential opportunity there. Okay, so yesterday, these are the calls. I love this. I love this site, guys. Total Tesla, $1.2 billion call buying. Amazon, 880 million. We haven't seen this in a long time. Let's see if we can get continuation. AMD, has been a beast. Still continues to beast, right? Still going higher. I love this stock. SPY, Apple, starting to take a bite out of that. And Moderna, obviously, NVIDIA, yada, yada. And just for shits and giggles, let's take a look at the puts. What's going on there? And then on the other side, right? Look at this. This is super cool. Goes through the day, tells you what everything's going on. So Amazon had the hedges going on, right? And then Tesla had hedges as well. Qs, AMD hedges, had everyone. But I didn't know we still have a little bit of time here, guys. And we also have a cycle coming in that I have to talk to you about. Okay, on the Qs. And it's an ICL, and we'll talk about that as well. All right. Consumer confidence, flipping, it's bullish, right? Short-term 1 month to 3 months out, 83% back test going back to 1978. That the market will be up 0.8% and 4% 3 months out. Going out further dated, 1 year, 2 years, you see the same thing. So this is there's nothing that tells us the market's not going to continue to go higher. We will have pullbacks of 5 to 10%. Oh my. But still, overall, the market will be higher going forward. It's just, these are realities as they stand. And it's bad for the US dollar. And they keep telling me we want the US dollar to go down. That's a good thing for the market, right? And here you can see the heat map, right? In terms of what it means to the different sectors. Cyclical, small caps, sea of green, right? Shorter term though, consumer staples, you can see the only materials, communications, healthcare, financials, right? Defensive, small caps, right? Value. And then you can see that, this will start to kick in as we move forward. And that's why, in terms of small caps, we have another 1 to 2 weeks before we start to get a nice tailwind. Because the optics, you see, all right, so there's two sides to this coin. I mean, whether I want to be, bullish or bearish. I can say, okay, well, this is a negative because, we're moving higher and yet optimism isn't. Or I could say, well, this is bullish because it's a tailwind because this means that there's probably cash on the sidelines. So 50-50. Breath sucks. Oops, stinks, sorry. It does. I mean, isn't that what you would expect? And I can be bullish and bearish on it. This is a red flag. This is a red flag, right? These are cues. IDM, this is the opportunity, right? On a bounce, right? McClellan oscillator is a red flag. But I could also say, like I said, I could go on both sides of it, right? Yeah. Yeah, I know. The fear in index, the problem with a lot of these stats, guys, is that because of the manipulation that's going on, i.e. QE, quantitative easing, a lot of the traditional statistics kind of on the sideline, and that's why you basically look at technicals. We have crazy number of stocks on momentum breakouts. Like, I mean, crazy number of stocks. It's got options, boys. Okay. Heat map is not a good one. Sea of rose, red, healthcare. Now, don't forget on the sea of red, we can't. It's Keynes, right? Keynes in theory. You can stay extended far longer on the upside than you can stay solvent if you want to pick a top. That's it's plain and simple. You don't want to pick tops because momentum, it continues to build and build and build. This is the opportunity down here, and I don't see anything here for us. I'm not buying any of these, And then we have here, so we'll see how things play out. Like I say, one of my peeps is looking for an ICL, intermediate cycle low. We'll talk about that in a sec, right? Okay, money flows. Out of the Qs yesterday, guys. So let's think about that one, right? And into SPY, and, the bond. All right, for our Elliott wave peeps, this is what it looks like. A, B, C, D, E. Still in no man's land with the VIX. This is the NASDAQ VXN. This is neutral right now. Neutral to modestly red flag. And the reason being, obviously, is because the SPY is leading in terms of all-time highs and the Qs have not. So I'll see how that plays out. And then we have the VXN up here as opposed to down here. So you get the drill on that one. All right, so let's take a look at it, guys. Yields down, right? High. So the yield curve here, this is really, the 5-year is the sweet spot, guys. So you have to be aware of that when it comes to tapering, et cetera, et cetera. So that's down 5. And then these are up. So we have steepening, which is, even though the bonds are up on the day, this is okay because it's a little bit of a steepening going on. Here's the 10-year bounced off. This is our range now, guys. 1.8 gals, 1.2938, and then on the downside, 1.14. I don't think, look, we get more and more as we get closer to Jackson Hole at the end of the month, and then we got, next earnings cycle, then we got, the quarter, all kinds of stuff, FOMC. Okay, so ADP numbers just came out. Oh boy. Okay, let's see. And then as you can see, bonds are going up on that one right now. All right. Here's the 210. Okay, so the yield curve is steepening slightly. So that's a neutral to a little bit of a tailwind for the market. Here's the 5-year. Oh my goodness gracious. This is really quite something, right? Breaking this level right here. This is a big deal. And as you can see, the numbers were softer than expected, right? So bonds are starting to move higher here. So you can see what's going on there. German's already, okay, so everything's telling us the same. If you are of the inclination, and South Beach and I have been in this for market, doing stuff with this shit for decades, like multiple decades. This is not just little retail peeps doing this stuff on the bond side institute. This is massive, huge institutions basically telling us something all across the board. Okay, they're seeing this market, the bond market is telling us that we are going to see a softening on the economic globally side. All right, here's the German 10 in our US spread. You can see it's starting to come in a bit. So here's the China US, and you can see right here with China, they did bounce it off here, but they've been literally weakening. So this is last month from 3.2 all the way down here to 2. That's a huge move, guys, on the interest rate market side. Huge move. Let's look at the currencies, what's going on here. Dollar's still below this. Like I say, the minute last week, they declared the dollar was going higher. That's when you sell. These guys are so incompetent when it comes to, you want to buy when nobody wants to buy, and you want to sell when nobody wants to. Guess what? Everyone wants to buy. That's when you sell on the currency side. Okay, so we're still stuck here. Okay, so the Chinese aren't devaluing their currency anymore, but the fact that on the interest rate side, they continue to weaken their rates, it's screaming that internally things are softening in China. If things are softening in China, guess what? They're going to be softening here before you know it. Here are the different indices, right? Let's take a peek here. This is the DAX. Okay, so we're coiling, guys. This is a monthly. This is what a coil looks like. Okay, so we're going to get either like that, or we're going to get like that. I mean, one way or the other, this is going to resolve itself. We probably have another month, okay, to go, but this is what it looks like when you coil. These compact candles, something's going to happen. I don't care which way it goes. If we break out the all-time high, then we're obviously going to rip higher. And then if we take out this extension here on the downside, then obviously we're going to have room on the downside here. Okay, I can't tell you which way it's going to be. All I can tell you is it's happening. Okay, so small caps excluding the US is CFA. This is actually starting to push higher here. And what's really fascinating, guys, is it's actually outperforming our small caps. All right, this is not what should be happening at all. So when the small caps rally, okay, this is the look you want to see. All right, this is basically the US small caps screaming. All right, so what we want to see start to happen is we want to see this start to roll over. That's the bullish narrative we want to see, okay, with small caps. Until we start to see that, we're kind of in no man's land right now. We do have in this spread, this little top that happens here. I really don't want to see this get taken out, because if it does get taken out, what it's telling us is that the US small caps is going to be continuing in mired and muck and selling off, whereas overseas, it's going to go into support. That's not the look we want. Okay, Fez, waiting. Let's see if we can pop this top. Last week's high, come on, let's do it. I don't know if we will, but we're waiting. Okay, and Fez is something I really want to be in, and I'm in this for the long term, guys. I'm in 2023, so this is you know, peeling off money overseas into Europe. So this is the stocks, the 50, the ETF. So this is where I want to be, right? As a catch-up type trade. EEM, this is really fascinating. This is a monthly chart, guys. So you can see here. So this is basically Taiwan Semi. This is Tencent. This is Baba. So it's actually holding up. Meituan. So this is really holding up fairly well. We know, right? The money's coming into China. Like a lot of money's coming into China. Okay. Let's see what happens. This is Chinese A50 holding this extension, right? So I wouldn't be surprised to see on the Chinese side, okay, continuation of that theme. We are reclaiming the pivot here. It broke yesterday. I would have preferred to see a complete gap fill. It didn't happen, but we reclaimed it. 49.92 is your pivot on the upside. As long as it holds 49.92, okay, things are looking pretty good. We are right now at 50.15. right? So just be aware of that. So that's the pivot for me. If we break below the 49.92, I'm going to get back into my K-Web puts again. Right? CQQQ, this is a very interesting, this is the obviously the equivalent of our Qs in China. And the reason why I bring it up is because, well, this is why I bring it up. I mean, this is why I bring it up. We've never had a volume ball like this. Okay. Does that mean we're done on the downside? I don't know. We'll see. But, you know, it got my attention like huge, bigly. Here's the spread QQQ, CQQQ. All right. So we had the breakout here, and that was the first thing that says, oh my goodness gracious, right? But as you can see here, it almost reached the price target extension. So that's just a measured move from this move here. Okay. If I wanted to, I could have used this as well. And that would have probably been almost exact. And this is how you look at these measured move guys on the breakout. And as you can see, it's almost exact right here, here. Here we go. Okay. We're still in the upper quadrant of this. All right, so one or two things can happen. The Chinese Qs can do nothing and our Qs sell off, right? Or the Chinese Qs can go rally and our Qs do nothing. That's the narrative right now. We're in this upper quadrant right now. We'll see how that plays out. If we get closer and closer on here, the risk becomes on the downside for our Qs, right? Or the opposite, you know, for the Qs. That's how you look at these splits. Okay. I want to quickly go over, here's the SPG. My time is almost up. And you can see here, this is a growth value spread. Crazy, right? You would think growth would be screaming. It's not, right? XRT is one that I'm really loving right now. This is the monthly, and you can see that it's about to break out. Right? This is what I want to see. It's holding this extension. So I'm still in my my retail stocks, and I'll just peel it, roll up and out as it continues to move higher. My time is up. Welcome once again, those of you who are joining us pre-market here. This is what we do every day. Are you ready, sir?
No, about just need a couple minutes here.
Ah, fantastic. Okay. So here's Fang. Really, I think it's going to break down, but we'll find out with that. All right, so we did retail. Let's look at XLV. This one I've been screaming for months now. And I know a lot of you followed me. Once we had the breakout right here, okay, I mean, it's been a fantastic trade for me, right? I mean, on the breakout, it's up 6%. That's a lot for an ETF, guys. Just saying. But and it continues to grind higher. This is fantastic. I love this. You know, the healthcare sector just continues to move higher. That's where I want to be. So what I'm looking for is obviously momentum strength. So that's retail. So that's healthcare, right? So these are the ones I want to be in. Let's take a look at the Dow Transports here. Now, I'm really thinking we actually may get a breakout to the upside. So that would be the UPS, the FedEx, et cetera. Right? Let's keep an eye on this. This is the weekly. I want to see it break and hold. It's got a lot, but the reality is it continues to hold this extension that goes all the way back to the beginning of the year. So that's notable for me. Right? Let's look at the SPY on the daily. All right, consolidative, right? A little bit down. As you can see, the market's selling off a bit, a titch, right? We'll see how this plays out. You know, for me right now, I said that I was adding to, I added to some of my hedges, you know that. I'm at 0.25% now of my normal percentage. If we start to break, okay, yesterday's low on the SPY, then I'll add another quarter to make it to a half, looking for a pullback. Don't forget, if we have an intermediate cycle low, guys, on the Qs coming, and this is one of my peaks, and they're really good with this stuff. This is basically, in order for that to confirm, we have to take out this low, right? So if you look in terms of that, you're looking at maybe a 4% pullback in the market on the Qs. Right? And if that would happen, even potentially, you know, move down here, okay? So, I mean, you know, we'll see how that, and that would be like a 5 to 6% move. These are normal within a melt up market that's going higher. This is not something to be concerned about. This is actually healthy. We know that we have a lot of red flags that have to be addressed. Okay, so just be aware that this is all something, it's not something you freak out about. All right, let's take a look at the commodity side, and I want to do a little bit of deep dive before Spartan comes on with crude. So we're starting to break down here. Okay, we're breaking our extensions and stuff like that. And I'm still thinking that we have a pullback down here to 65 on it. All consolidated within a larger uptrend line, right? But I want to look at the XLO and the USO, XLE and the USO. So what I'm looking at right now, and I'm talking to you about physical versus the oil refiners and stuff like that, right? So what I've got on right now is I've got some Halliburton calls on, except but I have SCO on, all right? So I'm basically short the crude, the physical, and I'm long on the other side, these oil companies, mainly because their earnings are doing really well. And there was a piece I saw with both Schlumberger and with Halliburton that their balance sheet looks so much better now, guys, okay? Here's another, this ETF basically is 40% Schlumberger and Halliburton. So this is another way, if you wanted to play it, that you could. It's inexpensive, but it gets you 40% into a sector that this oil equipment services sector that you want to think about right now. I'm not saying that this is all wherewithal, but I'm just saying that it's something that you should take a peek at.
All right, Beth, I'm ready to go.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, guys, morning. What's going on? Let me just pop up the screen share here. There we go. So if you guys are new to chat, Discord link's emailed to you. If you don't see it in your junk mail, and we'll go through the onboarding instructions after I come back on, but there is also an onboarding email that you can read that was sent to you. So make sure to check that out. Anywho, guys, what's going on? Morning. Let's take a look at what we got going on today. A couple different things. Pre-market tickers on watch: BNTX, HCMP, Cdlx, HUD, BYSI, and ZY. So BNTX, FDA looks to grant full approval to Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine in September or by early September. Stocks gapping up on that. HCMP earnings beat EPS and revs year-over-year growth 79.9%. Stocks gapping up. Cdlx, EPS and rev miss, year-over-year growth 108.9%. Q3 guidance lowered, stocks gapping down. BYSI, HUD, gapping up, continuation momentum from last day's move. BYSI, Dublin 3 trial of their plinabulin in combo with docetaxel for non-small cell lung cancer showed study met primary endpoint, stocks gapping up on that. And then ZY says it became aware of an issue with its commercial pipeline that will impact the company's delivery time and revenue projections. So stock is gapping down on that. Let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint intraday. First two, BNTX, HCMP. Let's see what we got going on here. Oops. BNTX. There we are. Let's do this. All right. So BNTX gapping up all-time highs. Been obviously on a nice little tear here, breaking out of this little double top from last day, or last couple of days, I should say. Let's take a look at where this thing's got room to. All righty, resistance there, resistance at the double top. Let's do some more fibs on this thing to the upside. All righty. Should be okay here. All right, let's take a look at this thing intraday. So pivot on the upside going to be the 361.15 fib extension level. This level is able to hold. We got room towards the 367.20 fib extension. Above that, we do have quite a bit of room towards the 385.32. Unable to hold, look for a pullback towards 354.33 to 343.98 on the downside. Overall, in BNTX, going to be leaning bullish out the gate. Looking for a little bit of a pop. And I think we will come in a little bit on this news. I mean, news necessarily isn't new. It's just a matter of timing, I guess. So I think that it'll come in after a little bit of a morning pop. HCMP, let's take a look at this. So stocks gapping up. I believe we're at all-time highs, but let's go back in time. Yep. All-time highs. Okay. Fairly bullish consolidative looks like as it grinds higher. Another name we need some fibs on here. Upper end level 1192. Okay. So pivot to the upside today, 107.15. Level holds, we've got room towards 109.75. That level breaks, 1192 will be tested on the upside. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback towards 105 to 103.36 on the downside. Overall on HCMP, going to be leaning bullish, looking for a continuation push through those all-time highs on the upside. Let's take a look at the next two names. So Hood and Cdlx and Hood, and then the other two. All righty. Going to be a lot of fibs today, I can tell you that. BNTX, HCMP. All righty. Let's take a look at the next two. Cdlx. Hood. All right, gapping down to 88 a share-ish. Let's get that lower end range support labeled. All right. lot of pivot reclaims here. All right, 92.67 pivot. This level is able to hold, get room towards 97.38, sorry, 97.83 to the 104.24 level on the upside. Unable to hold, look for a pullback towards 85.94 if that level breaks. You can see further continuation into the, I believe it was 79s. Nope, 78.26 on the downside. It's a little bit lower. Overall, Cdlx going to be looking for a pop topping, take the name short. So going to be leaning on the bear side today. So that's Cdlx. Let's take a look at Hood, which is gapping up in continuation from last day's move, as we all know. Nice little squeeze. Let's take a look at where this thing's got room to today. That's one pivot. That lined us up actually perfect. Get the intraday. Let's see. Nope. All right, that's fine. That's okay. $51.71 pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold 55.64, 57.73 will be tested on the upside. Above that, will give us new levels, of course, intraday, guys. Unable to hold, look for a pullback towards 48.58 to 44.62 on the downside. Overall, on the hood, going to be leaning bullish still, looking for a continuation push to the upside. I think it will continue to squeeze higher today. So we'll be watching for a hold of the pivot, break through the next resistance levels on the upside for continuation. So that's BNTX, or sorry, that's Cdlx and Hood. All right, let's take a look at the next two guys. BYSI, ZY. All right, BYSI, obviously huge gap up this morning on this cancer drug. Go back on the daily. Yes, perfect. If you get huge movements like this, it always makes sense to flip to larger time frames Figure out major levels of resistance. Otherwise, we'll be battling with trying to pick which ones stand out from a daily perspective, where it's fairly clear on a monthly. Okay, let's take a look at this thing intraday. This should work pretty well. 55 is the higher level. Okay. Remember that. 37.24 pivot, levels able to hold 48.50 to 55 on the upside. Unable to hold 28.77 to 19.67 on the downside. Overall, going to be leaning bullish neutral, but I think what I'm going to be looking for is a little bit of a pullback out the gate this morning on some profit taking. It's a hell of a run in the pre-market. And then you can look for a little bit of a curl and a bounce. If it just starts to push right out the gate, then obviously it will continue to squeeze higher. So keep that in mind. Pivot will be important today on this name. Okay, let's take a look at the last one, ZY, and then we'll go through the SPY and the FANG. ZY, big gap down, $8 a share, basically on the lowering projections. Absolutely smacked to the downside, actually. And I haven't done this many fibs in a while. Basically almost everything, every single name. All right, let's take a look at this thing intraday. It should be enough to give me some levels up down there. There she is. Beauty. Can we go lower? Or something lower? No. Okay. What's that lower end level? Okay, got it. 260. Alrighty, so 919 pivot on the downside today on the CY. This level is able to hold. We got room back towards 1305 to 1792. Unable to hold. Look for a pullback towards 514 on the downside to the 260 level on the downside. So that is ZY on this name. Going to be leaning on the actually bullish neutral side, looking for a little bit of basing to kick in to take the stock long. We'll see if we get it. So pull back basing this morning, maybe a little bit of a bounce. And then we'll see what's what. So that's BYSI. And that is ZY. All right, let's take a look at the SPY and FANG, which I'm going to rip through here. All right, guys, market. What's going on here? SPY. Back below this 440.28 level. It did basically trade up to the top of the range yesterday, got rejected. Still range bound. Looks like we're going to continue to be inside this week for now. Pivot 440.28. This level is able to hold 441.03, 442.08. Unable to hold 439.30 on the downside of 438.15 will be tested. Overall on the SPY, going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side right now at the gate, looking for a little bit more of a pullback, and then I think we will see some basing kick in and a bounce. But we are trading off the top of the range, so I think we got a little bit of room lower right now. So leaning bearish neutral out the gate for now on the SPY. Let's take a look at Apple. Of course, pivots reclaim, that will change. Apple, let's take a look at this. So still holding EMA support on the daily. That looks good in that regard. So Apple still holding EMA support on the daily. Actually, a little bit of a flag forming here. 147.03 is going to be your pivot point to the upside today. This level is able to hold. We got room towards 148.06 to 149.04. Unable to hold 146.34 to 145.13 will be tested on the downside. Overall on Apple, leaning bullish neutral. Looking for a continuation push higher today. Let's take a look at Amazon. Amazon pivot, guys, is going to be the 33.63 today. This level is able to hold. We do have room back into the 33.94. Unable to hold. Look for a pullback to 33.41 on the downside to the 33.20. Overall on Amazon, leaning bullish neutral. I think it's been holding this range quite well. Looking for a little bit of a curl up off the lows on the daily, potentially fill that gap towards the 3,400 area in the short term. We'll see what happens. Let's take a look at Netflix. So Netflix, a little bit of a double bottom yesterday. Pivot to the upside today, 511.53. This level is able to hold. We got room for continuation higher into the 515.51 level. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback on. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback on Netflix to 507.12 on the downside. Overall on Netflix, I'm going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side today, looking for a continuation pull back into that double bottom if the pivot's unable to hold. So all about that pivot this morning. Let's take a look at Facebook. All right, guys, Facebook, so below EMA support on the daily, a little bit of a pullback. 354.98 pivot, unable to hold. 350.49, 346.90 will be tested, unable to or able to be reclaimed. 358.12, 360.32 on the upside. Going to be leaning bullish neutral on Facebook, looking for a retest of the pivot point today, and we'll see if it's able to reclaim or not. It's a little bit extended to the downside on the daily chart, and I do think it still needs to retest that EMA resistance that it broke before confirming downside. Google flagging on the daily to the upside. Pivot is going to be the 27.13 level holds, 27.38, 27.62. Unable to hold, look for a pullback to 26.86 to the 26.68 on the downside. Overall on Google, going to be leaning bullish neutral, looking for a continuation push higher if that pivot can be reclaimed. Like I said, it's flagging on the daily, which is does look good because of that. Let's take a look at the VIX. Okay, VIX pivot, guys, is going to be the 1857 level. Level's able to hold 1925, unable to hold 1753. VIX was flagging yesterday, got rejected at the downtrend. we'll see what happens today. Again, I use the VIX for direction on the SPY. So primarily I'll just watch the pivot, see which way it goes. And it should give me a good idea of what the market's going to do. Usually they act inverse, but obviously sometimes there is a divergence, and that is worth noting. QQQs. Pivot to the, well, obviously daily flag set up for continuation higher, holding all short-term EMA support. That looks good. Pivot to the upside today, 366.59 level holds, 367.45 will be tested. And if that level breaks, then we got room back to all-time highs. Unable to hold, 365.52 support downside. Level breaks, 363.97 will be tested. Overall on the VIX, so overall on the Qs, leaning bullish neutral. Looking for a continuation grind higher. Last but not least, guys, IWM. All right, last but not least, guys, let's take a look. Sorry. There we go. So obviously holding short-term EMA support here on the daily. Been trying to hold the middle of this range. 219.38 your pivot. Levels able to be reclaimed. Room towards 220, 221.75. Unable to hold. We look for a pullback on this name towards the last day low. 217.48 on the downside. Right now, I'm going to be leaning a little bit on the bearish neutral side because it's below the pivot, looking for a continuation lower into last day's low. And then we'll see what is what. Whether or not that level breaks, we get continuation, or it holds up, we get a bounce back. I'm kind of inclined to think we stay range bound. Anyways, guys, that's the SPY. That's the FANG. Those are the individual names that we're looking at today. I'm going to go ahead, pass over to South Beach as I type up the pre-market action plan. Then we'll do a quick little recap before the open. South Beach, if you're ready, it's all yours.
Guys, okay, let's get right to it. Okay, happy Wednesday. So we see the bond trading at 1.13, which is a new low. Okay, for the recent, I don't know, since what, March or so? Maybe a little later than that. So we had these guys saying yesterday that the bond market's ridiculous. Okay, bonds are trading where they are because people have a sense of where things should be based on this global world we live in, because the dollar, because of bonds, because of other currencies and all this other stuff. Okay, there's all this stuff comes in and makes things not mispriced. Okay, things are priced where they should be priced, especially the bond market. All right, and now they're going to say it's more mispriced. Well, guess what? It's not mispriced. It's priced where it should be, and it's telling us something. Okay, it's telling us that we're not in this perfect world that we thought we were in. Okay, maybe it's because of COVID. Maybe it's because there aren't as many jobs out there as people think. Maybe it's because people don't want to go back to work. Maybe, who knows? Okay, but the bond market's priced at a price for a reason, and that reason is telling us that the world is not perfect. Okay, that this picture perfect scenario that everybody's painting, that COVID's going away and jobs are coming back and interest rates are going to stay low, yada, yada, yada. Maybe that isn't so. Okay, that's what it's telling me. Okay, looking overseas, we got the 10-year in London down at plus 0.49. Okay, in Germany, the 10-year is trading at a minus 0.51. Okay, maybe that's why they're buying our bonds, okay? Because in Europe, they're not getting any yield. They'll, it's even worse. Maybe that has something to do with it. But mispriced, I don't think so. All right. France, they're all down. Globally, yields are lower than they were, okay? That's what we have in the yield business. And the yield curve is flat. And that tells us something that we'll go into group rotation in a minute, but let's finish with our pre-market setup, and then we'll get into that. Okay, oil is down another buck. 69.21. So it was in this nice little trading range, okay? And now it's starting to break to the lower end of that range, but that has yet to be seen, okay? The way I see oil, it's in a nice trading range, and for now, this is a good scenario for equities, okay? Currencies, we have the dollar down against North America, down against the yen, down against the Chinese currency, and down against the euro, okay? Crypto. So we had Gary Gensler on TV today from the SEC. We saw Bitcoin sell off a little bit yesterday. He came on today. He wasn't that hawkish. He was more constructive than hawkish, I would say. And Bitcoin is rallying probably because everything he said was, as far as I was concerned, pretty pragmatic. Okay, made a lot of sense. Embracing, technology and all that. So I see Bitcoin rallying over that. Okay. Let's look at the foreign markets. Okay, we have the FTSE up 18 points, which is basically 16 points, basically flat. We have the DAX up 0.5%. And over in in Asia, we have the Nikkei down 0.21, and we have China up 1 and Hong Kong up 1. Okay, so that's the situation. So with bonds trading at the lower end, what should we be scared about the market? Well, what else are you going to do with your money? Okay. You're not going to put it in bonds, right? You can do real estate, you can do crypto, you can do equities, but what percentage of your disposable dollars are you going to put in investable dollars, I should say, would you put in crypto? Probably a low percent. Real estate, if you're in real estate, it's probably a good business, but most people in real estate are in the real estate business. So it leaves most of us with equities, and that's been terrific. Okay, and if you look at the charts, the S&P is fine, looks pretty good. The chart's still very bullish. The Nasdaq, the same. The Russell is laboring a little more than the others, and the transports are the only one that gives me pause. That is not painting the best picture, but let's see what today brings. Okay, no sell signal as far as I'm concerned in transports as of yet. 10 and 17 on the weekly haven't crossed, and it seems fine. Okay, China, nothing out of China that I saw overnight that was significant. Okay, you know how I feel about the Chinese equities. And I'm not going to change my mind. Okay, there's a lot of girls at the dance. There's probably 10 Chinese stocks that are investable, maybe 20. And based on the history of the Chinese Communist Party, they can have them. I'm not buying them. I'll trade them. I won't buy them. Okay, crypto we discussed, oil we discussed, the virus. I don't know about you guys where you live, but from where my vantage point, it looks like it's getting pretty bad. I'm hearing a lot of people I know getting the virus. And then you see companies like JP Morgan reevaluating back to work. You see a lot of companies reevaluating their mask policy. So I think that this situation for the first, the next few weeks at least is going to stay a little nasty. And who knows what the winter's going to bring. Is there going to be another strain? Is there going to be what? Who knows? Bond market's telling me that they're not that constructive on economic growth. That's what it's telling me. Okay. Let's look at Mr. Market from yesterday. What did we see? We had the banks, and big oil was strong. E&P was strong. And that's in the face of low yields that banks were strong. So obviously the equity traders felt that maybe we had reached a bottom in bond yields, and they were taking a shot. E&P was strong. Pharma, machinery, home builders, semis, and cyclicals, and retail. And on the negative side, you had solar, you had Bitcoin, you had hotels, like that. Okay, I would think hotels and stuff, travel type names will have a tough go from here, actually. And you had RCL numbers, not so terrific. So that's down a little bit as well. All right, so what else came out today? You had Peter Navarro doing what Peter Navarro does, China bashing, but that's in line with what he always does. So that's that. FDA is considering, or it's suggesting in the paper this morning, that they're going to approve the Pfizer vaccine by next month. That would be nice. Payroll numbers came in at 330. They were looking for 653. Okay. So that's what got the bond market a little shook up, I would say. And who knows what's going to be. I don't know if people don't want to go back to work, if the people aren't hiring to the full extent they were. I really don't know, but it tells you something. And then you have that job number coming out on Friday, and maybe Powell isn't so stupid. Okay, that's what I'm sensing. That's my scenario about the whole thing. As far as numbers that came out today, you had a slew. Tonight there's an inordinate amount of earnings, and tomorrow, okay, just pages of it. But today, the good numbers we saw from Activision, GBT had good numbers. This stock has been in the, kind of poor for a long time. I thought it would be a better company than it is. That had decent numbers and a decent amount of stuff to say. Lyft was decent. Tupperware, Green Dot, Caesars Entertainment was good. We had positive news from a boy, Yellow Sam Isaac, on top line results for their Dublin trial. And we had MGM doing some proactive activity, selling part of the REIT that they had spun off. If you remember, they turned into two. So they got an influx of cash at a higher valuation, and that stock's up $1 as well. Okay. On the negative side, we had CVS. We had General Motors, which is a bit of a surprise. I had that call spread, which I told you I bought for like 30 cents or something. That doesn't, hopefully I could sell it for $0.10 today and be out. You had this ZY disaster, a recent IPO, saying that they're not going to be selling anything for a while, and they're destroying this stock, ZY. What's it down now? It's trading at 8 from 34. Not the best IPO. GM we discussed, Unum, Hyatt, Akamai. Akamai's crazy. It has great earnings last quarter. It had crappy earnings this quarter. All over the place. Don't seem like they manage their earnings too well. MRCY was negative. NCR, SKLZ, a Kathy name that she's been selling. HTA, you had the numbers and the CEO resigned. When a CEO resigns, that's usually a red flag, guys. So beware of that one. Tonight we have 10 times Genomics, so, Apache, Angie, BKNG, Etsy is reporting, Lemonade is reporting. I'm hitting names that we trade. GoDaddy, MGM, Uber, Win, Fox, Fizzly, I don't know if I said that one. So those are the names that are reporting tonight. Tomorrow, prior to the opening, we have Cigna, we have Datadog, we have this DOCN that that guy's been pushing, whatever his name is. GoGo, Marna, Moderna's reporting, Party City, which I have a position in. Viacom is reporting. Remember, Discovery was kind of poor. Starwood, Penn Gaming is reporting. Yeti is reporting. So, and Zoetis, those are the bigger names. Okay. All right. Research-wise, on the short side, everybody is downgrading the CY from buys to sells with targets anywhere between 7 and 10. Okay. A little late for that, but that's what we got. People don't like Clorox. We have an example would be Deutsche Bank has a hold. They reduced the target from 192 to 153. Stock's 164. So a bunch of people don't like Clorox. Here's another one. Atlantic doesn't like it. A bunch of guys. MRCY was downgraded by Baird. And RTHM goes to a sell at Bank America with a 17 target, basically in line. MSYT, a sell at Morgan Stanley with a 6 target. That might be actionable. Excuse me. That might be actionable. My sense in ZY is it got low enough to take a shot. Like if it broke low and then surpassed its IPO price, I mean, its opening price, I would probably play it. Hold on a second. Okay, I just sold a little hood, guys. I bought that at 38 yesterday. I sold some at 54 and some right here. Okay, I didn't sell any yesterday. So from 38 to 53, 54, not too terrible. I hope some of you guys got that one. But I did give it to you pretty confident. On the long side, I like this Under Armour, guys. They have basically new management. A lot of guys are bullish in it. JP Morgan takes the target from 25 to 30. Numbers are pretty good. They've been underperforming Nike by a very good margin in the recent past. I think the stock looks ready to go. I'm focusing on Under Armour. A lot of guys like Baba, they can have it. I have no interest in buying this name at any price. I will trade it, but I won't buy it. Okay. By the way, those other two names, guys, I gave you, I sold yesterday, the VSCO and the DXO. So I'm out of both of those. Those were good trades as well. Okay, so let's get back to today. This Capri Holdings, which you know I bought yesterday, got upgraded by Cowen. They take the target from 57 to 75. I do like the stock. Is it up today? Yeah, it's up a little bit in the face of a down market, which is good. I like this DuPont out of Citibank. They take the target from 96 to 102, but with the bond market laboring the way it is, it's probably not a good day to be long cyclicals. So just a broad overview of the market with the bond market breaking low like this, I would probably avoid interest sensitive names. That's what I'm going to be doing. Maybe even look to short them. The GDP growth kind of names should have a tough time, like the cyclicals, like the banks, like the insurance names, like the oil and gas names, like that. And if anything's going to rally here, my guess is it will be high PE tech and possibly FANG. Okay, so getting back to the research, Marvell, which I love, took the target from 60 to 70 at Jefferies. This call I liked in this BJ's restaurant, hold to buy target goes to 61, stock's 38. I like that call. But these are things I'm going to put in my head because with COVID and all, I'd be hard pressed to think the restaurants are going to rally. So this, when I'm reading this research, I'm thinking, okay, when people have a better view on the economy, this is a go-to name for me. I said BJRI, Nancy. Okay. But you can't, when the bond market's getting smashed and people think the economy is going to labor, it's not the time to be bold on a stock that needs GDP growth. You just put it in the side pocket and you wait for things to set up and then you buy it. So, that's why I do this. Okay. I go over this stuff and some of the stuff, it's good to call, but you just can't play it today. All right. So I wouldn't play a eat-in restaurant today in the face of COVID numbers going through the roof. All right. That's my sense on that. Okay. CWH was upgraded at Baird, target 56. That's a kind of name that can probably do okay in this environment. Target 56, stocks 40. Stifel likes Caesars. Here's Adams Harkness, guy's been an analyst there for a long time. The Unisys, he upgraded for the first time in 20 years. He goes to a buy from a hold and a target of 30. I like when a guy's been right for 20 years and now he likes it. So I think that's significant. What else was there? I think that's more or less it. I want to go over a couple of things that Kramer said last night. One of which I've been saying in a long time. His biggest fear of the market, guys, is the IPO market sucking up too much liquidity. I mean, I've talked about this every day, probably for weeks. And I feel a little good when someone as smart as Jim Cramer says it, because it leads me to believe that, you know, I'm on the right page. But there's just so many IPOs, it's crazy. They've done 304 this year, 105 billion, and that doesn't include 300 SPACs. And the calendar is just loaded. Okay, so for instance, there's there's a bunch of secondaries today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. Some names: Ingersoll Rand, Zoom Info, LIVN, just a lot of names, a lot of shares. 29 million Ingersoll Rand at 50. That's a lot of stock. That's a lot of dollars. ZI 20 million at 55. You know, this sucks up liquidity really fast, guys. There's no IPOs, but there's 13 more slated for tomorrow and Friday. And so far, there are like 4 secondaries that are coming. So, and the IPO market has been filled with landmines, to be frank. Okay, so you really, not only are they sucking up liquidity, they're sucking up liquidity with companies that are less than great. So, gives me pause with that. He also said this, Tom, I'm talking about Cramer now. Tom DeMark, who's a chartist that he likes, is getting less, you know, a little nervous about the market. But I couldn't understand if the market had to be up today for him to be outright bearish. He said it has to hit 13 up days. It was a little confusing. So if anybody understood it better than I did, let me know. But I was a little confused by what today had to do. But he was a little, he was, you know, kind of negative on the market, looking for the next few weeks or so. All right. Anyway, what else did I want to tell you? Kathy bought some Etsy and Hood and Fate and PAC-B and this MKFG, which I have, that's a SPAC. And she sold some Snap, Tencent, and JD, and Nintendo, which she's been selling as well. That's really it. So I'm out of time, guys. You know, let's see what happens. Don't fight the tape. Trade what you see, not what you think. And let's have a good day. Spartan, it's all yours, buddy.
All right, thank you, South Beach. Guys, just the NVAX, FY, I think it may be worth 3.2 bill just because the last deal that they did with the US government was at $16 per dose. I'm assuming it's higher just because Pfizer and Moderna raised their prices, what, 2 days ago? Or said they were. So I would assume these guys will as well. So it's probably worth more, but just so you know what the dollar amount is, and that's fairly significant. Obviously, we'll see what happens there. Next resistance levels: NVX 217.92, 223.28. I'm long it right now. I've been long it since, I'll tell you right now, 191.27 is when I got in when that news came out. So we'll see if it gets a little bit higher. But 1/2 left. Okay. Anyways, let's take a look at what we got going on, guys. Pre-market, a couple different things. Why won't this pop up? What's that, guys? There you go. So a couple different things. So everything's posted in the pre-market section. So we'll just do a quick little recap here. If you guys are watching the YouTube stream, you want to read this, you can pause it and look. Here's the pre-market action plan. You can see all the charts that are posted from this morning. And let's take a look at what we got going on today. So BNTX, HTMP, Cdlx, Hood, BYSI, ZY. BNTX, FDA looks to grant full approval to Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine by early September. HCMP, earnings beat EPS and revs, year-over-year growth 79.9%, stocks gapping up. Cdlx, EPS and rev miss, year-over-year growth 108.9%, Q3 guidance lowered, stocks gapping down. Hood gapping up on continued momentum from last day's move. BYSI, Dublin 3 trial of basically a drug that deals with small or non-small cell lung cancer, or treatment, I guess. Showed study met primary endpoint, stocks gapping up. ZY says became aware of issues with commercial pipeline that will impact the company delivery timeline and revenue projections. Stock is gapping down on that. Let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint intraday. And just so you guys know, next resistance levels, write these down: 218, 223, just to make it easy. Okay. Okay, let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint. BNTX, first two, and HCMP. BNTX, pivot to the upside today, 361.15. Pivot's able to hold. We got room towards 367.20. That level breaks. We can see continuation of 385 on the upside. Unable to hold, look for a pullback towards 354.33 on the downside. That level breaks, 343.98 will be tested. Overall on BNTX, going to be leaning on the bullish side out the gate, looking for a pop and topping to kick in. Why? Because I think this is, news continues to be reiterated, and this is just now a date. 107.15 on HCMP pivot, levels able to hold towards 109.75 to 111.90 or 111. What is it? 111.80. 111.92, sorry. Levels unable to hold, look for a pullback to 105 to 103.36. Overall in HCMP, looking for a reclaim of the pivot, continuation push to the upside today. That is BNTX, that is HCMP. Let's take a look at Cdlx and Hood. Cdlx pivot to the upside today, 92.67 levels able to hold, 97.83 to 104.24 will be tested. Unable to hold, 85.94 to that 78.26 level on the downside. Overall in Cdlx, looking for a pop topping, leaning bearish. I'll take the name short. Hood pivot 51.71. This level is able to hold, room towards 55.64 to 57.73. Unable to hold, 48.58, 44.62 will be tested on the downside. Overall on Hood, going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side or bullish neutral side today, looking for a continuation push higher if that pivot point can hold. Let's take a look at the next two names, BYSI, ZY. So BYSI 37.24 pivot, levels able to hold. We got room towards 48.50 to 55 on the upside. Unable to hold, 28.77 to 19.67 will be tested. Overall on BYSI, going to be leaning on the bullish side today, looking for a continuation push higher. So looking for a little bit of a pullback out the gate and then continuation. All right, let's take a look at ZY. I just took the rest of NVAX off, by the way, guys. A little bit extended to the upside, and obviously I got to do this, so can't really watch it. 919 pivot on ZY. This level is able to hold. We got room for continuation into the 1305 to 1792. Unable to hold, 514 to 260 on the downside will be tested. Going to be looking for a pullback on ZY this morning and then a basing move to take the stock long. Let's take a look at the SPY and FANG. All right, guys, market. What's going on here? Is this the right area? Is this the right area? It is. All right, SPY, guys, pivot. Let's take a look. So SPY 440.28 pivot on the upside today. This level is able to hold. Room higher into the 441.03 resistance breaks. We see the 442.08 level tested. Pivot unable to hold. Room lower into the 439.30 support breaks. We see the 438.15 on the downside. Going to be leaning bullish neutral. Bearish neutral. Looking for it to kind of pull back more within this range area to the bottom end of the range. Maybe not all the way to the last day's low, maybe around 437-ish area, and then a little bit of a bounce. But again, we'll see what happens out the gate. Obviously, could just pull, reclaim the pivot, and start to push back to the upside. The market does look bullish. I think it's just range bound for now within this consolidative pattern. Let's take a look at Apple. Some of the tech names look good. That's another thing. 147.03 pivot, level is able to hold. 148.06 will be tested to 149.04. Unable to hold, 146.34 to the 145.13 on the downside. Overall on Apple, leaning bullish, flagging on the daily, looking for continuation higher today. Let's take a look at Amazon. Pivot on the upside is going to be the 33.63.38 spot. Levels able to hold. We got room towards 33.94.10. Unable to hold 33.41.68 to 33.20.17 will be tested on the downside. Overall on Amazon, leaning bullish neutral, looking for a continuation push higher. I think it wants to fill that little gap in the short term. Let's take a look at Netflix. Pivot to the upside today is going to be the 511.53 level. This level is able to hold. We do have room for continuation into the 515.51 to 521.84. Unable to hold 507.12 to the 503.54 on the downside will be tested. Overall on Netflix, going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side today. The pivot breaks, I think we can get a little bit of a continuation pull to the downside back to last day's lows. So we'll see what happens there. Let's take a look at Facebook. Facebook pivot on the upside today is going to be 354.98. Levels able to be reclaimed through 358.12 to 360.32 will be tested. Unable to hold 350.49 to 346.90 on the downside. Leaning bullish neutral on Netflix, looking for a continuation push higher. Want to see a retest of the pivot today on that name to the upside. Let's take a look at Google. Okay, Google guys, pivot to the upside is going to be the 27.13 level. Levels able to hold 27.38 will be tested at 27.62. Unable to hold 26.86 to 26.68 on the downside. Overall on Google, leaning bullish neutral, looking for a continuation push higher. Let's take a look at the VIX. Pivot is going to be that 1857 level. Level holds 1985. Unable to hold 1753. I use the VIX for direction on the SPY, so they're not leaning any direction. QQQs going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side today as well. 366.59 pivot, unable to hold 365.52 will be tested. Able to hold 367.50, 367.45 on the upside. So we'll see what happens there. And then last but not least, guys, IWM, which is the pivot on the downside. 219.38, unable to hold 217.48, able to hold 221.75 on the upside. Going to be leaning bearish right now because it's below the pivot, but of course that could change if it does reclaim. So that's the SPY, that's the FANG. Those are the individual names that we're looking at today, guys. If you guys have any questions, you can go to Spartan